investing in people in the long term, there has to be a mutual understanding.
Hustle hard, hustle hard. Close mouths, don't be fat. Thinking strategically, but acting like a gorilla is the kind of marketing that's small. When it innovates very little, it's highly risk averse. It indicates
was one of the most challenging chapters to sort of understand, but it's one of the most powerful chapters that if you could try to follow it tonight, there's going to be a decent amount of theory and a lot of different variables thrown out there. But it's really a special chapter because it moves away from our individual characteristic traits and behaviors and it moves towards other people. And it really moves from our self-assessment, which if you think about emotional intelligence and some of the things that we talked about with understanding ourselves so that we can lead others, this chapter really talks about others and it talks about situations and it talks about the group and the team and being able to pivot and adapt our leadership style to what the group needs is truly a real form of being a highly effective leader. And it's a powerful concept. And if we could at least understand it conceptually, then maybe we could start practicing it in our lives. We have these questions of, well, how come people aren't listening to me? Or how come people seem to think that I'm being too bossy, or maybe I'm being too commanding, or maybe I'm not commanding enough. Something's wrong with my ability to perform as a leader. I can't seem to feel comfortable at work. Maybe my team is toxic. These troubles that might plague us as leaders, or even as subordinates at work, where we're just not sure how to put our finger on it. And this theory of leadership, and it really is that, a theory, but you'll see it walked out, will help bring in some of the different variables because there's a lot of variables. There's the situation, there's the environment, there's the culture at work, there's the leader's behaviors, there's the subordinates' behaviors, there's the subordinates' commitment level, there's the subordinates' competence, like whether or not they're capable of getting the job done. So it's why I love the subject of leadership because of these multiple variables. But I promise you, if you can start sort of putting these pieces of the puzzle together, or at least looking at one piece, these styles. A style is a culmination of behavior. So we behave in certain ways, and that behavior we repeat. And that repetitive behavior then becomes a style. And all of us, in some way or another, will gravitate towards or feel most comfortable with a particular style. And that just becomes our default style. We talked about servant leadership, democratic leadership, autocratic leadership, transformational leadership, transactional leadership, laissez-faire, charismatic, situational, which we'll talk about tonight, participative, and strategic leadership. These are just some. There's more styles, and we talked about the entrepreneurial style. So the purpose of me starting that, of explaining why we talked about styles, this propensity towards a behavior that's acted out often, is that if we understand that about ourselves and we understand the different styles, what we can do is we can assess a situation and we can see what style would be most appropriate in this particular context. Now, that's a powerful thing because we're going away from understanding ourselves. It requires us to have a strong understanding of ourselves, thinking about it, to know ourselves well enough, to know our style, to know our traits, know our characteristics, know our emotions, this kind of thing, to then walk into a situation, assess the situation, and pull a style out that matches the situation. So it's complex. It's not easy. But if you could think through the mechanics of that, and you could think through practicing that over and over and over again as you mature and grow in your leadership, this is a wonderful concept to understand that we could very well be able to execute a different style based on the situation. And the situation means the environment. The situation means the task, whether it's hard or simple. The situation means the types of people that are on our team. Have they been there for 2 weeks or 2 years? I mean, these things matter. And I promise you, if you have a leader that doesn't operate according to the situational leadership theory that we're going to talk about, it can be difficult because they're treating you the same way they treated you, when you first started 6 years ago. They're treating you the same way now, even though you know how to perform the job, even though you've demonstrated yourself over and over again. And it becomes too robotic if you don't understand the concepts that we're going to talk about tonight. So situations shape leadership style. This is the posit of this theory, that we must change our style based on the situation. Leaders must adapt to context. Internal and external environment matters. Internal environment is the office, the culture, the people, the way that the desks are situated, the way the cubicles are designed, the ambiance of the internal atmosphere, the team that you work on. And then external environment means the competitive nature of the industry. It means the technological infrastructure of how you operate. So I just look at this example of you're repairing heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, and you are a dispatcher for a HVAC company. These are air conditioning technicians. So obviously you're going to work probably Monday through Friday. You might have some emergency calls on Saturday. You're probably going to work from 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock, maybe 4 o'clock, and you're going to be working with field technicians. Okay, so picture that role in that context, and then picture the context of a person that works in international business and supply chain management. They may be doing very similar things, working with people, dispatching people, calling people, but it's in a totally different arena. It's likely done virtually. It's likely done with people in different countries. You probably won't be able to see the people that are doing the work and shipping the containers. So as you can see, it's different. Therefore, different styles are needed in those different environments. So that gives you an idea of what internal and external environment and what that means and why it matters. Flexibility is essential. Culture influences leadership approach. And I know we talked a little bit about culture, but not a lot. But cultures are value, norms, beliefs. When you understand the culture, you sort of know how to act within the context. So you act differently at your um, at church with your grandparents on a Sunday than you would at the party that you're going to go to with your friends in South Beach this Friday. It's a different it's a different way that people have norms and behaviors and beliefs and operate in that context. So the role of the situation leadership effectiveness depends on situational factors. I'm going to say that again. Effectiveness depends on situational factors. So if I tell you that this class is about learning how to become a more effective leader, and I just write a statement that effectiveness depends on situational factors, why is that important? What does that mean to you? So if you know yourself and you know what situations you thrive in, would it then make sense for you to think about your career and your job and choose the leadership situations that you likely would be more effective in? The leader can choose the situation. That's a fact, right? I mean, it's obvious. I can choose to lead in this dynamic as opposed to this dynamic. Yet, which we'll learn tonight, sometimes leaders can't choose the situation. So what we can do as leaders is analyze the situation, which we're going to walk through a model tonight, and we can try to change the situation. That's a powerful concept because leaders are we're engaging in a process of influencing others to complete goals, but that influence process could mean that we can change the situation. That if we have the power, the relationship dynamics, and the ability to create to lower task ambiguity, meaning to make it more clear as to what we're going to do, to outline that, you have better relationships. And not only do you have more clarity on tasks, you now have stronger relationships. And the other factor where we can change the situation is power, meaning positional power. We could try somehow to get additional positional power. So at least we have more authority. So we can choose to get more authority. We can choose to build better relationships, and we can choose to provide more clarity on the task. So we're going to walk through what that looks like and how to do that and how to assess the situation. But I want to go back to what Christian said. It is important to know that as a leader, you could choose the situation, if you follow me there. And then sometimes as a leader, you can't choose the situation. So therefore, you can try to change the situation or try to adapt your style, one or the other. So situations shape leader behavior and its outcomes. There's a great book, and I'm going to look it up because I think I've quoted it before, but I want to see if I can do a better job providing you with this resource. It's called Triggers by Marshall Goldsmith. This is it. So let's see if we can get it on Amazon. So this book that Marshall Goldsmith wrote, Marshall Goldsmith is a well-known executive coach. He's likely executively coached, 100 of the Fortune 500 executive CEOs because he's just that good. And he wrote this book about the situation. So I'm just going to read a little bit about it. It says, do you ever find that you are not the patient, compassionate problem solver you believe yourself to be? Are you surprised at how irritated or flustered the normally unflappable you becomes? The normally unflappable you becomes in the presence of a specific colleague at work? Have you ever felt your temper accelerate from 0 to 60 when another driver cuts you off in traffic? Reactions don't occur in a vacuum. They are usually the result of unanticipated triggers in our environment. The people and situations that lure us into behaving in a manner of diametrically opposed to the colleague, partner, parent, or friend we imagine ourselves to be. These triggers are constant and relentless and omnipresent, which means they're all around us. So often the environment seems to be outside our control. Even if that is true, which he's basically stating what I just said. Hey, sometimes the environment is not always outside of your control. Sometimes but sometimes it's not. As Goldsmith points, choice and how we respond. This is what we're going to talk about tonight. And Triggers, his most powerful and insightful book yet. Goldsmith shows how we can overcome the trigger points in our lives and enact meaningful and lasting change. Goldsmith offers a simple magic bullet. Okay, so he's taking, just so you know, and selling millions of copies of books, the concepts we're going to learn tonight and just disseminating it in a story. That's all that Marshall Goldsmith is doing there. So let's get into it. Okay, so to warm you up a little bit. I'm going to ask for those that can participate on your computer, on a piece of paper in front of you, on your phone. We're just going to do a quick assessment. So if you could, on a piece of paper, on your phone, or on a computer, just write the numbers 1 through 10 down on the paper, like write it vertically, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So for each question, you're essentially going to put a number next to each question. And the number is going to correlate with the scale here. It's going to be 1 would be you disagree strongly with the question. 2 would be you disagree with the question. 3 would be you're neutral. 4 would be you agree. And 5 would be you agree strongly. This is called a Likert scale. So I'm going to read a question. If you disagree strongly, you put 1 next to question 1 or question 2, whatever. If you agree strongly, you put 5. And then if you sort of fit somewhere in between, obviously you have disagree, neutral, and agree, which would be numbers 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so here we go. Question 1. You disagree strongly, disagree, neutral, agree strongly. one would be disagree strongly, five would be agree strongly. Here's the question. Workers need training before I can place high expectations on them. Do you agree strongly, disagree strongly? Put the number down. Number two, confident and intelligent workers require less supervision. Number three, anxious workers usually need extra reassurance. Number four is all workers need about the same amount of instruction. Number five is one pep talk usually motivates all workers the same way. Let's see, but the reverse score next to them kind of gives it away. Six is clear directions are especially needed during a crisis. Number seven is competent workers need less supervision as they gain experience. Number eight is giving emotionally immature workers freedom is the best approach. 10 is a person's cultural background influences how I lead them. And the last question, 10, when a worker seems insecure, I give clear instructions and guidance. So as you can tell, all of these questions are really gauging whether or not you believe you should lead one person a little bit differently based on the situation and the way they behave and their personal needs and characteristics versus others. And sometimes people say, I shouldn't have to do that. Like question four, all workers need about the same amount of instruction. If you agree with that, then the situation may not be something that you consider to be a factor. So anyways, here's how you would score it. So you add up all of your numbers. So you just add up all the numbers between 1 and 10. So you might have a couple fours, a couple fives, a couple ones. You add them all up, and the most points you can get is 50. So when you do your math, which maybe some of you are doing that now still, and your total score adds up somewhere between 40 and 50 points, you have a strong situational perspective that you get it, that situations matter, that you adjust the way you coach and lead and train based on the situation. You adapt well to different workers and situations. You recognize how training, confidence, stress, and culture shape the best leadership style. And then 30 through 39 points, moderate situational perspective. You sometimes adapt your style, which you don't all the time, but may default to one size fits all. Keep sharpening your ability to read people and situations. And then if you scored less than 29, you have a limited situational perspective. And so thinking through the concepts that we're going to talk about in this class will increase your ability to adjust your leadership style based on the situation even more. You rarely adjust your leadership approach. Focus on learning how worker differences and task demands should influence your leadership choices. So now this is a new agey kind of approach. I'm going to go back to so you have it. Now I'm going to comment on it. If you watch movies from 1920s, it's more mechanistic. You show up, you put on the same trousers, and as a man, you put on these suspenders and you march to work and you have your lunchbox and you go to the factory or the office and you just sort of do the same thing. And you're sort of a different person maybe at work. And again, I'm telling a story just so you can think about it in your head. I'm not sure if this is actually true. And there's a good chance you're going to um, not really adjust who you are and your style too much to each individual. It might be too much to think about because we're here just to do this task, and the task is very straightforward and it's very directive and very commanding and very bureaucratic, very hierarchical. And then here comes more of a humanistic movement. Here comes more of a different generation. Here comes a generation that has more education. Maybe they have more abilities, they have more access to technology. So the leadership styles that executives and supervisors within the workplace, they had to adjust, they had to change because talent was leaving. The demand for respect amongst talented workers has increased. So leaders needed to adjust the way that they went about their business. And this is why understanding situations is important. I traveled to Oklahoma not too long ago, and I've worked, this is my fourth time with a particular client, and they work in the energy sector. So they're cooperatives, electric cooperatives, huge operation, huge facility that they're servicing thousands of people. And the revenue coming into that place is multiple millions of dollars. And they have a strong team. And the reality with their team is that they have these different generations in their workforce. And the older generation, the baby boomers, most of them are already gone. They've retired. So I think it's Gen X and millennials and Gen Z are now in the workplace. So even just thinking through how these different generations like to be led and talking about diversities on teams and generational diversity, cognitive diversity, personality types, these are subjects that a lot of them gravitate towards. And they're like, wow, this is incredible. And they're very clear and candid about what they want. So if the people on your team can articulate to you how they want to be led, I would think it would behoove you as a leader to say, fair enough. Like there's certain credibility there that I can take into consideration when I lead you. And how amazing is that? If one of the most amazing things that my wife could do is say, hey, here's how I want you to love me. And here's the way in which I need you to serve me. And that's very helpful. Sometimes I don't know what I'm doing. So if a leader can make that clear and say, even a subordinate can make it clear, or a leader can make it clear, here's who I am, here's what I'm good at, here's what I'm not good at. And oh, by the way, how do you want to be led? This is a this is an amazing thing that we can do. So this is fun. This is called the least preferred coworker scale. So here's another measurement in your mind. Think about the person that you work with that you least prefer to work with. Don't say the name out loud. If they're in your role play group, please don't say that. I'm just kidding. But if you think about that person, least preferred coworker, this is the LPC scale. So what this is going to help you do is if you think about that person and they ask about that person, this measures how leaders describe the coworker they work with least well. So the people who are relationship motivated, they, as a questionnaire, there's a bunch of questions, they describe their least preferred coworker favorably. They're like, well, they're laid back and they're very nice. But they know that this is the least preferred coworker, but they still describe them favorably. And those people who describe the least preferred coworker favorably gravitate towards a relationship motivated style. So in Fiedler's contingency theory, which we're about to walk through, it's going to take 15 minutes to walk through because it's quite complicated. You have to think to yourself, all right, which style do I choose the most? Now you have the task motivated leaders, which we talked about the style, describe their least preferred coworkers unfavorably. Lazy, irritable, don't really enjoy being around them. They seem to be grumpy, and it's difficult for me to work with such a person. They have no problem rating a person in that way. And obviously, as a human being, it's not great to speak about a person like that. But at the same time, it's because they're trying to accomplish a task. I would try to give them the benefit of the doubt to saying, hey, it's a leader that is just struggling to get that person to accomplish tasks. Like I can't seem to get them to call me back. I can't seem to get them to send me the email. Yes, they frustrate me, and it's because they have poor communication skills. So that would be considered rating the least preferred coworker unfavorably. And if you're in your mind, if you're agreeing with some of that, then you're more task motivated. So relationship oriented leaders adapt to different personalities. Task motivated leaders, maybe it might be a little bit harder for you. So, all right, this is building off each other. I'm going to run through this as quick as possible. Leadership situations. We're going to look at the situation as being high, moderate, or low control. You want to have more control because more control is favorable for the leader. So, how do we measure control? Control depends on, and remember, this is not only can we choose the situation, but when we analyze the situation, here's the way in which we analyze the situation. Control, high, medium, or low. Control depends on leader-member relations, the quality of the relationship, the task structure, the clarity of goals and procedures. This is what I kind of talked about before, and the position power, authority to hire, fire, reward, and discipline. It's always more favorable for a leader to have more control, high leader-member relations, clarity on goals, and high position power. This is not always the case, and that's why it's important for us to go through this model together. So task-motivated leaders, they work best, and we'll see a chart in a second, in high and low control situations. So super low control and super high control, task-motivated leaders thrive. Somewhere in the middle, and we'll look at the continuum in a second, relationship-motivated leaders, they're best in moderate control situations. So situations vary by three factors: good, poor, high, low. We'll look at this. Relationship leaders excel in moderate situations. So here's a visual. Again, this is where it might get complicated. I don't want to lose you. You identify the type of leadership style you gravitate towards. Am I more relationship oriented? Am I more task oriented? That's number one. That's the first stage of the model. The second stage of the model is you say to yourself, okay, now I have to define this situation. When I look at this situation, I have to say to myself, my leader member relations, are they good or are they poor? Pretty easy. Like, how strong is the relationship I have with my coworkers? Let me give you an example. I told you I sit on this board, and I told you about the condominium. The board has 5 members. I moved out of the condominium. My wife and I lived somewhere else about a year ago, and I stayed on the board. So what that should tell you intuitively is I'm not around them enough. I'm not with them long enough. So I don't see them. So my leader member relations with them have strained. They're a little bit poor. So we're going to have a major meeting tomorrow night, and we're talking to the entire group of owners about the pool situation. And I'm going to be physically present because I'm aware that my leader member relations with my team is strained a little bit. So I want to make it better. So I'm analyzing the situation. Number two, task structure. How clear are the goals? Is it very clear? Is it not so clear? I'm sure some of you at work, you can answer these questions like, it's ambiguity. Is it due Friday? Is it due Monday? What do we do here? What role do we play? What am I supposed to accomplish today? What are my performance metrics? This is task structure. Is it high, really super clear, or is it low? It's not that clear at all. And as a leader going into the situation, you need to ask yourself those questions. And then your position power. You have strong position power where you are clearly the boss, you are clearly the manager, you clearly can use coercive reward and positional power to influence people. If that's true, it's strong. If not, it's weak. You might have more of a flat hierarchy in the situation with the board. We're all pretty much the same. Like I have no positional power. We're all board members. Yeah, I'm the vice president of the board, but everybody's vote counts the same. The title doesn't necessarily matter. So my position power is weak in a situation like that. If you're volunteering, if you're on a team that's just working together collaboratively with no clear hierarchical structure, you have weak position power. So we're analyzing the situation. So are we task or are we relationship? Which one do we gravitate towards? And then how about the situation? Is this situation really good leader member relations or poor? Is it high task structure or low task structure? And is our position power strong or is our position power weak? Okay, cool. So these factors, these three factors matter. Leader-member relations, do followers trust and respect the leader? Good or poor? Task structure, we already went over this. Is the task clear and structured? Position power, does the leader have formal authority? Hire, fire, reward, discipline, and strong. We can stop right there with this whole situational leadership thing, and we can just talk about how important it is that when we walk into situations as leaders, and even as subordinates, that we understand these three dynamics about the situation. That alone is going to help us realize our ability to influence in those environments. And then, of course, you want to gravitate towards trying to make all of those things higher if you're trying to have, or better if you're trying to have better influence. So I'm gonna do this, and then we're gonna go back to the other one. So here's the deal: you have these different octants essentially. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All of these are different situations. So in situation one, we're doing well. I'm gonna draw some stuff on here. We are doing great on leader member relations. They're really high. The task structure is clear goals, everything's good. Strong positional power. We are the boss, we have clear authority, all this kind of stuff. So in a situation like this, and a situation like this, and a situation like this, all of these situations favor the task oriented leader. I'm going to show you just a second. So high octane, high control, octanes 1 through 3, good relations, clear task, strong authority. Good relations, clear task, strong authority. So now let me go to this slide. So high control situations, 1, 2, and 3, octanes 1, 2, and 3, good, high, strong, good, high, weak, good, low, strong. All of these situations favor a task-oriented leadership style. Let's go. Here's what we need to do. We don't need to do too much relationship-oriented things. You don't need too much supportive behaviors. You just need to get the task and you need to go ahead and do it. So good leader-member relations on all of them. Task structure is fairly high on 2 out of the 3. And position power is actually strong on 2, weak on 1, but still it compensates out to be task-oriented. So now we have octane 4 or 5, octane 4 and 5 here. I'm going to draw them. We have octant 4 and 5. We have good leader member relations. We have strong relationships with that team. And we have low task structure, meaning it's not that clear, decent amount of ambiguity, and low position power. So in a situation like that, our leader member relation types and behaviors are the best thing to do. And then moving over to 5, we have poor leader member relations, we have high task structure, and we have strong position power. Even there, the types of leaders that do well, we'll see here, are the moderate control situations. So 4, 5, and 6 actually are moderate control situation. So good, low, relationship oriented, relationship oriented, relationship oriented. Low control situations, we go back to task. So 7 and 8 is task. So poor leader member relations in both of them. Task structure is low in both of them. Position power strong on one, but weak on the other. So again, I know so it might mean it's somewhat complicated. I'll try to sum it up for you when we get to this part here. So the amount of situational control by the leader, relationship, task, power, it matters. So what do? When we have really high on all of them, we just give directions, meaning we're doing good. We have good power. We have good relationships. The task is pretty clear. All we do is give directions and just let it be. Give directions, give directions, give directions. If certain things are strained, if our task structure is low, if our relationships are weak, if our position power is not so great, it falls somewhere in the middle there. We have to think about building quality relationships. So relationship motivated leaders perform best when they have moderate control, moderately favorable. Both favorable and unfavorable factors are present. That means relationships matter, and hone in on that. And then when things are really low, and I'm going to give practical examples here in a second, task motivated leaders perform best when they have low control, highly unfavorable for a leader. If you're in a situation that's really tough, not a lot of clarity, not a lot of power, start doing things. Be clear on the task. Let people know what the next step is. See if you can assign roles, that kind of stuff. Try to be a little bit more assertive in situations like that. Leader member relations are poor in those situations. Task is poorly structured, and leader has low positional power. Task-related leaders thrive. Okay, if you followed me there, now we're going to bring it to reality. And I think this is where it's going to make sense. A leader walks into a situation. Their propensity is to be more task-oriented. They understand that. Potentially, they know they need to work on the relationship skills. They see a situation, and they have to discern, based on the situation, how do I act? So in a situation where a task leader thrives, this would be a situation where a manufacturing plant, where workers respect the manager, tasks are clearly structured, assembly line, and the manager has strong authority. A task-focused leader pushes efficiency and gets strong results. So in this kind of environment, where there's high control, manufacturing plant, task leaders thrive. In a moderate control situation, this would be like a marketing team. And what a lot of you would experience, say, in the office environment, maybe you're working interdepartmental in a sense. A marketing team launching a new campaign, the leader has some authority, not total authority, The team trusts them somewhat. They haven't been working with them a lot, but they give them some credit. That, but tasks are creative and ambiguous. They're not that clear. Creative and ambiguous. Like you can't give clear direction on how to design a marketing campaign. You have to sort of let people know that the marketing campaign has to have three different variables. It needs to have a social media and an email campaign and a flash mob. And those are the three things. Now, ready, set, go. Like they have to figure out how to fill in the blank there, and that's creative and ambiguous. So in a situation like that, relationship leaders thrive. Hopefully, it's coming together a little bit more. Low control situation, a fast food restaurant, task leader thrives. So a fast food restaurant with high turnover, poor employee relations, and weak authority. So, your boss, I wouldn't say it's weak authority because in that situation is pretty clear, but at the same time, people don't need to work with you. People, relationally don't necessarily care if you're a nice person or not, whatever it looks like. So a task-oriented leader succeeds by setting strict routines, rules, and keeping order. So it's all about order, routines, and rules in a situation like that. If everything's thriving, again, not to complicate it, and it's working as a task-oriented leader, then obviously you're gonna build relationships. But the first thing you do when you analyze a situation, high turnover, poor employee relations, and weak authority, task. Talk about tasks, get things done, strict routines, rules, and keeping order. That's what your subordinates want. That's what the organization needs in a situation like that. They don't need you to sit down and have kumbayas for the next 6 months with people because the operations is going to cave in and your leadership is going to be ineffective. Again, if you're on a marketing team, it's a different story. You might want to do a 6 month kumbaya relationship building exercise. Okay, that was a lot. I think there's one more. The increased control. There's one or two more slides on Fiedler's situational thing, and I'll just pause to see if you guys have any practical situations where this might apply. So to increase control, this is what we're trying to do. We look at the situation. We say, hey, things aren't going well, and we want to increase that level of control because the more control we have over those three factors, the better relationships, the more clarity on tasks, and the more power, the better off we're going to be as a leader. So to increase control over the situation, the leader can do the following: build relationships, obvious, show care for group members. That's something we should always be doing as leaders. Number two, add structure. This is hopefully where it comes together. You see that the relationships are tense. You want to show care for group members, build relationships. You see that there's a lot of ambiguity on the task. Use deadlines and clear instructions. That's adding structure. Gain authority. Request more formal power. This is one that a lot of times students in classes, and I would say a lot of students in general, they're afraid to do. They have a difficult job, a difficult task, and they've been busting their butt. This is a lot of people I see doing this. And for whatever reason, they're struggling more than they need to because they may not have authority over something that they're trying to do, something that they're trying to control. And it's limiting them. So I'll just say this. I'll say from you're managing a grant, and the grant is $100,000, and the grant is you're meant to go into the community and feed homeless people. You're gonna dispatch resources to homeless people, and you have $100,000 to do it. And you have a boss that hired you to say, "Hey, go ahead and do this." And you're doing it, and you're doing a good job, but you're busy, man. You're loaded, and you just need somebody to help you administratively, and you want to hire somebody to help you administratively. But instead of going to your boss and saying, "Hey, listen, here's the deal. I need to have another person on my team in order to do this job well," and that's going to really be effective. And I'm going to remind you of this just about every week, and I'm going to show you how this is going to work with somebody else on my team. Will you allow me to do that? And so some people they won't request that. That's essentially just requesting more resources. But maybe the authority is that they don't have control over the financial disbursement of the funds, and they need authority over the financial disbursement of funds because there's some bureaucratic process where they can't have access to the money because they have to fill out forms in order to get the money, and that's a problem. So they go to the boss and say, I need to have direct access to this money. I need to have a company credit card where I have authority to spend on behalf of this budget. And requesting that could very well be something that not only helps you make the grant more successful, your boss is probably going to be happier, and your life is going to be easier because you're requesting more authority in a situation that you're trying to lead. So that's one of the three things that we can do to control, and gaining authority is one of them. And learning how to do that professionally and appropriately is a monster of a maturity as a leader. Okay, that was probably a lot. Does that any questions or comments on all of that? That what got you here won't get you there is something I think of. That my wife was a manager of patient experience at the Homestead Hospital, and then she was promoted to the director of patient experience over three different hospitals. Totally different context, totally different situation, new team. Very, very successful at the managerial level, and she built her team and she gravitated towards one style. But when she was promoted into a different team and overseeing a different environment with different players, she was honestly she's doing a good job, but she was just overwhelmed with the different contexts, like the leader member relations, the task structure, the position power, whether or not she had control over the situation, certain position power. She just didn't have position power anymore because now she's dealing with doctors and executives of a hospital system, and she needs something, but she can't tell the person, hey, can you give me this, because they don't work for her. And so it can be very frustrating, even though you're effective as a leader and you know you're a good leader, if you don't understand the context in which you're leading. There are some critiques to this. and obvious critiques. And because of the complexity of everything I just explained, it just becomes like, how are we supposed to assess so many different variables and remember to do this at all times? I think what's important is that situation matters, context matters, and that the people within that situation likely want to be led differently. And that if we just acknowledge that, then we can somehow run an analysis of a situation. It's really helpful. We'll talk in this chapter too about crisis leadership, which we probably won't get to tonight, but that is a perfect example on how to, and it's why it's in this chapter, on why looking at a situation that would be a crisis situation is a different type of leadership behavior and hopefully style than it would be on just a typical Tuesday. There was a scene in this guy, he was an actor, Ari Gold. It was a it was a show on Netflix, or sorry, it was a show on HBO, and I forget the name of the show, but this guy was an actor. It was a funny scene because he was an agent of the actor, and there was another agent that was trying to court his client, and so he saw that he had floor seats to the Lakers at a game. And this guy Ari Gold, if you remember that name, maybe you recognize the series and you could tell me what the series was. But Ari, who was the agent, who was like the big character in this particular series, is said to the guy, he's taking him to the Lakers game, and it was like a Friday night. This was like the big thing that he was going to do to try to take the client away from Ari. And Ari looked at him and said, I take him to the Lakers game because it's Tuesday. Like, that's a normal thing for me. Like, the Lakers game is low on the list of like specialty clients. And so for whatever reason, I remember that. It's like a typical Tuesday as a quote. But, if business is as usual and there's no crisis, then we have to think to ourselves, okay, today we're going to lead differently. Yet tomorrow, when things are a little bit out of hand and chaotic and the technology at our workplace isn't working, let's probably get to work a little bit earlier and let's take a different approach to how we attack the day, because there's a different situation and people are going to have different needs in those situations. The ambiguity is going to be different. The emotions are going to be higher. So that hopefully brings it down to reality. So Fiedler's work has promoted others to conduct studies about the contingency nature of leadership. Most, if not all, seminars that you go to that are these leadership-based seminars that are more like John Maxwell and what's this guy's name? All of these different leadership gurus. They likely use and incorporate the basis of this situational leadership. And so does Marshall Goldsmith, as you can see in that book. The model has also alerted leaders to the importance of sizing up the situation to gain control. Fiedler pioneered in taking into account both traits and the situation to better understand leadership. Traits is relationship oriented or task oriented. Those are the styles that we gravitate towards based on traits. And he took that into consideration and looked at the situation. The contingency theory is too complicated to have much impact on most leaders. Yeah, so it can't discredits everything we just talked about, but understanding, I think, the basis of it is important. So sometimes you can say to yourself as a leader that if I have a leadership style, I just don't belong in certain situations. Again, that is perfectly permissible. And so it's the debunking of this situational analysis. It's like, no, you don't. A leader can't come in and change the situation. You just have to put the right leader in the place so that they can operate within that situation. So the leader's going to be the leader's going to be the leader. They're not going to be able to change their style. So you have to match the leadership style to the situation. That's another way to look at it. The contingency approach and the situational approach says, no, the leader will have a style, but the leader can not only change their style based on the situation, but can also change the situation based on their style. So that's a lot there. Okay, here's another one. I have a video with this one, so it might be more enjoyable. It's just as complicated, so prepare yourself. It's probably not as complicated, but it still is an interesting one. I love the name of it, Path Goal Theory of Leadership Effectiveness. So let's watch the video, and we'll see if I can get you intrigued by this. Would it be wise for us to understand the either positive affinity or negative affinity of the emotions that our group members are experiencing, assess their emotional state? Yeah, there's something called emotional contagion too. I mean, when emotions are present within a group, other people kind of pick up on and start experiencing those same emotions. So let's look at it the opposite way. And again, this is a situational contingency approach. We have a path, we have a goal, and if we're going to get there, we have to take both the rational brain and the emotional brain with us. We can't. The rational brain, I can tell you till you're blue, and I could speak over and over again about the definition of leadership and the contingency theory of what Fiedler has to say, and I could give you all the stats, and I could say you need to be a good leader, but you're not going to listen to what I have to say until you know that I care. Until I emotionally engage you somehow to compel you to trust me, to build some credibility, and to tell you a story that's impactful, you're not going to listen to what I have to say. So engaging someone's emotions and understanding, are they emotionally ready for what I'm about to tell them? And based on their emotional state, are they actually going to get up and move to the goal I'm asking them to go to? I have to assess that before I use my rational brain to tell them where we're going and to tell them how we're going to get there. So imagine you just lost your dog. God forbid, I have a dog. Her name is Sophie. She's 11 years old. We joke all the time that she's going to pass away soon, and it's sad. It's not sad because it's funny at the time, but when she passes away, it's going to be very sad. So imagine that your dog passes away, and you walk into work, and there's a demanding task that day, and your leader gets up there, and you're noticeably emotionally not there. And instead of your leader like kind of pulling you aside, or maybe there's only two people on the team, and asking like, "Hey, how you doing?" or "Do you want to be a part of this meeting? It seems like you're a little off today." They just go ahead and start yang 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 and going yada 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 about the directions for today, and isn't picking up on your emotional state. They're not situationally aware. They're wasting their breath. They're not effective in that situation. So I think that you understand. Can you be? Does that story kind of get you an idea about the wasted time leaders spend unless they understand what's going on with their team? Maybe you've experienced that as a follower, where there's a, call it, clueless leader that doesn't get it, doesn't can't tune in a little bit. And at times, I'll be honest, this is being socially aware, and sometimes that's not easy. And we're worried or we're anxious about what we're saying or how we're coming off, but we're not thinking about what's happening in their world. Here's the point: it makes it more difficult to be effective. Not to get into too many personality characteristics. So if we can just learn to assess the characteristics of our group members and some of the emotional states and sort of the demand of the task and how people are taking that, so that we can get the best outcomes and support. So here's the next. Now that you have the visual path goal theory, this path goal theory has four different leadership styles: directive, supportive, participative, achievement oriented. This is what those look like. Directive is when tasks are unclear, we have to be directive. Supportive, when tasks are stressful and dissatisfying, when there's emotion involved, we have to be more supportive. Participative, with motivated employees on varied tasks. So sometimes people are already motivated. They don't need direction and they don't need support. They just need you to listen to their ideas and to listen to their input and to take their input into consideration. And then the last one is achievement oriented, with ambitious teams on tough, ambiguous tasks, being more achievement oriented, setting clear goals, and driving some competition within the team can actually be a style that's beneficial. So going back here, we have these four leadership styles: directive, supportive, participant, achievement. So now this is what we can control. This is very important. What we can control and what we can't control. The contingency factors are the characteristics of the group members and the demands of the task. These are two things we can't control. So group member characteristics, there's a lot here, so please bear with me. The task, and know this: the ability and the experience of your team matters. New or unskilled employees may need more directive leadership. Skilled, experienced employees may prefer participative leadership. They already get it. So in the pool industry, for a long, long time, we would have technicians that were so good at chemistry. They would be able to test the chemistry. They'd be able to see it. They'd be able to decide how many gallons of chlorine, how many gallons of acid. Do we need to put any bicarb in here? They just get it. But when they first started, they had no idea what they were doing. And they needed direction. They needed somebody to sit by them side by side for weeks to go to these different pools and these different environments and teach them the chemistry of these pools. I think it's easy, but it's not. So, but once they got to the point where they got it, they don't need you sitting there micromanaging them all the time. Let them go. So this is their ability and experience matters. I think that's pretty clear, but sometimes we need to understand that. So when my chair hired me as a faculty member in leadership and management innovation, at that particular time, I had multiple years of leadership experience. I had multiple years of academia. I had a doctorate degree. But basically, I don't necessarily need you to help me with delivering content in class. But what I do need you to help me with is figuring out how to sign up for my classes. Like there's certain areas where no, thank you, I don't need support. But there's certain areas, because I was new as a full-time faculty, that I didn't know what classes, like how do I choose my classes. So she had to be very directive. Now, so I'm about a year and a half in, she doesn't need to tell me. But at first, she had to sit down next to me. We had to go through it together, and we had to walk through the plan and stories. But now, after a year, it's like, hey, you don't need to do that anymore. So she was to come into my office, and it's now we're registering for classes for the spring, and she was to walk through that with me as if it was a year ago. I would be like, what are you doing? I don't need your, I get it. And so she doesn't do that because she's fully aware of ability and experience, and she's very mature as a leader. So here's another one. And again, this is group characteristics. Locus of control. This is a big one. Employees who want control over their work, who have an internal locus of control, respond better to participative leadership, meaning they enjoy having control over their time, their energy, their effort, their ambition. And so if they feel that way about this internal locus of control, I can choose my own path, choose my own destiny. I can control the situation. If I work harder, I'll get better results. Those folks don't need directive leadership. They need participative leadership. And so some people on your team, maybe it's even you have a strong internal locus of control. And so therefore, you want a leader to be more participative. Versus, while those who prefer structured response better need directive. So a lot of times I'll go into my class and I will ask my principals of business class. This is a lower level business class. As you can tell in the higher level classes, for some of you who have me in the past, I'm somewhat ambiguous with assignments. Like think about this description of assignment. Plan a project that you want to do in the future. Okay, ready, set, go. It's this. I purposely bake in ambiguity there because at this point in your career, you got to understand what planning a project means, and you got to do it for you, not necessarily for me. But at the lower level, I said, do you want more clarity on the assignments? Do I need to give you an example? Do I need to show you what this looks like? And they all say yes. They want structure. They want clarity. They prefer that because they're just starting off in school. They just need to know they're going to get an A. So the assignments are all in Canvas, meaning like they're quizzes and they're things that you can do in Canvas. There's very little ambiguity. It's very structured. And to me, it's not as much fun. It's not as much learning in that environment. But of course, they need that in order to build because they don't feel like they have a strong locus of control. Hopefully, that example helps you out there. So then you have your need for affiliation. This is a big one too. So you have workers, and I think it was gentleman in his class that was working at Wendy's, and he essentially understood how to do his job. His manager left him alone, and in that situation, you're doing the same task over and over and over again all day long. And the electric cooperative industries like this, linemen, they get it. They go out to the customer's house, they fix the electric. They've done it. They've been an apprentice. They've done it so many times. The task is repetitive. I think about landscape crew members. I think about, again, pool cleaners, these trade workers. They wake up in the morning, they get in a truck, they look at their thing, and they basically fix the same things they've fixed over the last however many years. So in a situation like that, what do the people want? They likely want more supportive behavior. They likely want their manager to ask them questions about their life. They value their friendships over the monotony of their tasks. So if you're in this kind of environment and your people are trained up, essentially, they've gotten trained up, just be a supportive leadership style. They understand how to do the task, just support them. Hey, what do you need? I'm here for you. So they have this need for affiliation. People who value relationships and support benefit from a supportive leader. Achievement orientation, ambitious, high achieving employees thrive with an achievement oriented leader. So this is, we'll go back here. We have the leadership style. Now we have the characteristics of the group. And the last thing we're going to look at is the demand of the task. So here we have the task structure, the work group dynamics, and the task difficulty. The task structure, is it clear or is it ambiguous? Repetitive or boring? So I just mentioned that story about working a repetitive task over and over again. As you can see here, it says repetitive or boring tasks need supportive leadership to boost morale. Unclear, ambiguous tasks need directive leadership. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I don't know what PeopleSoft is and how to go in there to fill out my insurance information. Like, what is this? I have no idea. For my leader to come and walk me through it step by step is exactly what I need at that time. Versus, I don't need somebody to show me how to sharpen the blade of my lawnmower because I've been cutting grass for the last 10 years and I just don't need to do that. What I need to do is ask me how I'm doing, is to say hello, to be kind to me, see if I want to go to your birthday party this weekend. That's what I want in a situation where task structure is repetitive and boring. So work group dynamics, cohesive team can handle participative leadership. It's cohesive means we're working well together. Our hands fit in together. We sort of can finish each other's sentences. We understand our strengths and weaknesses. We've done many missions or tasks in the past, and we've been successful. And we're communicating well. These are all definitions of a cohesive team. So in a cohesive team, participative leadership is easier and more formidable for a leader to execute on. Frustrating or conflict-prone group needs supportive leadership. Arguments, conflict prone, personality types. Oh man, people aren't getting along, they're gossiping. They need supportive leadership and not as much participative leadership. Last one is task difficulty. Complex, challenging tasks benefit from achievement-oriented leadership to set high goals. So then the output. So now we have your style, the characteristics of the group, the demands of the task, and now the output, your productivity or morale. This is what you can control. If you're aware of the contingencies of your group, what's happening in the group, of the task, what is the task, then you can control the outcomes likely. And the outcomes are going to be more productivity, better morale, more clarity and confidence of the team. Employees perform better because the leader removes obstacles, like we saw in that video, and provides the right type of support. The elephant and the rider are traveling together. Morale is high. Emotions feel like they're in the right place. Motivated means my emotions are moving me towards my goal. Supported and satisfied with their work. Clarity and confidence. Workers understand expectations and feel capable of achieving goals. Wow, what a great place to be. If it wasn't always just that easy. But if we could understand our style combined with the characteristics of the group, combined with the demands of the task, is what's going to determine whether or not our productivity is high or not, our morale is high, then this model will be very helpful. Okay, this is the last thing I'll say, then we'll get to the role play scenarios and we'll be done for tonight. So thank you, by the way, for listening to me. Scenario one, call center, new employees. Inexperienced employees, they need structure. The task is clear, but stressful and repetitive. So what does the leader do? So inexperienced needs structure. And then, so this is, I guess this would be, inexperienced needs structure would be the demands of the task and also the characteristics of the group. They're inexperienced. Okay, so now we say, what do we do as a leader? We want directive and supportive. So higher performance, less burnout. So that would be the outcome. Hopefully, if we're directive and supportive, a combination of both in a situation like that. Scenario two, back to marketing team. Skilled, creative, want autonomy. The task is ambiguous and open-ended. The leader just needs to be participative. Outcome is innovation, buy-in, and morale. Remember, there's 4 different types here of styles. So participative would be the best style in scenario 2. Scenario 3 is an engineering team, highly ambiguous, achievement-driven members. Task is complex and challenging. The leader should be achievement-oriented. The outcome would be breakthroughs, productivity, and motivation. steps leaders can take to influence performance and satisfaction. So basically, we just talked about these two models. We talked about Fiedler's contingency model. We talked about being a task oriented or relationship oriented. Sort of that was done through the least preferred coworker and how you describe them, kind of categorized you. And then you move to the situation. Is it you have high power, you have high relationship, and how clear is the task, and you assess the situation and you then operate accordingly. Then we move to this path goal theory, and we thought about not only the four different styles that we can use in a situation like that, but then we looked at the characteristics of the team. We looked at the task, and based on the task and the characteristics of the team, we chose a style that was best for the situation. So that, because it's not about me as a leader, it's about our team, and it's about us achieving the goal of our team. So if we want to achieve the goal of the team, it is imperative that we're willing to adjust our style in certain based on the characteristics of the group, based on the difficulty of the task. And so our style, once we choose the right one, will create the most probability of us achieving high productivity and high morale on the team, have a high morale team. So these are just some other things we can do in practice. Activate group members' needs over which leader has control. Increase personal payoff to team members for attaining work goals. Make the paths to payoff easier by providing coaching and direction. Clarity. Clarify how effort will lead to good performance and how performance leads to reward. That's showing them the path to receiving benefit from doing their work. Reduce frustrating barriers to reaching goals. That's obvious. One of the things that's so clear that leaders can do is if there's just some menial task. I use the example of you're running $100,000 grant and you're trying to feed homeless people, and it takes too long for you to get these funds so you can go to Costco and buy food. Why can't I just get a company credit card? It's a barrier to try to submit for payment. So removing the barrier, it would be getting a credit card to be able to purchase that stuff whenever you want. And a leader should acknowledge that and do that for you because it makes it easier for you to attain your goals if you're allowed to do it. Reduce frustrating barriers, increase opportunities for personal satisfaction if group members perform effectively. Do not irritate people by giving them instructions on things they can already do well. I'll read that one more time. Because a lot of you, either you're doing this as leaders, you should stop, or you have a boss that's doing it and it's frustrating, or a boss totally gets it and you're operating well. But this is a big one. Do not irritate people by giving them instructions on things they can already do well. It almost would be like patronizing them to tell them how to do something that they know they can do and that you've seen them do it before, but for whatever reason, you're just feeling like you need to lead somebody today and you feel like leading them is just telling them something they already know. That's not leadership. Provide structure if it is missing and supply rewards contingent on adequate performance. Cool. Cool. So just to wrap up, it's amazing how we're about to go into ethics and social responsibility as leaders. The next chapter is called Leadership, Ethics, and Social Responsibility. But there is a tension here with performance and behavior in workplaces. So you may think that Jake or Baxter was potentially an arrogant, cocky, whatever. But if, and again, I'm not arguing for it, but I'm just presenting the tension. If he's making sales and he's contributing to the bottom line of the company through his sales, there's benefit there. The question is, where do you toe that line? Where's the gray area, and where do you say, hey, enough is enough? This is how we treat each other. This is how we behave, and that's too much. And I've seen it many times. I've worked with salespeople and sales cultures and sales teams. I worked in commercial real estate for a long time with leasing brokers, and I had a leasing broker look at me when I wanted to ask him a question about some information that I needed, and he told me that he has to leave the office because if he sits around and answers my question, then I'm going to get fired because the company's not going to have enough money to pay my salary. So he basically strong armed me and bullied me, told me that the reason why you're getting paid is because I'm out there selling and I don't have time to talk to you because I got to go sell something. And candidly, he was sort of right. You know what I mean? But obviously, the way he said it, his delivery was completely off base. But at the end of the day, I couldn't fire him and I had to still work with him. And so my choice is then, okay, how do I deal with someone like that? How do I work with someone like that? And I think these conversations need to be had more often. And I'm happy that we're having them tonight. And so great job, everyone, tonight for your effort in the role plays. I love the role plays. I think that they're the most valuable thing we do. So tuning into that and having some comments and witnessing these conversations, I think is amazing. And tonight we had some interesting situations. So because I just want to read a closing statement because I think tonight was a lot, but hopefully you got something out of it. So I put, tonight we explored how leadership success depends less on one's fixed style and more on the ability to adapt to the situation. Huge concept there. We looked at Fiedler's contingency model, and we saw how task-oriented leaders thrive in very high or low control settings, while relationship-oriented leaders do best in moderate situations where people's skills matter most. Then we looked at the path goal theory, and we learned that leaders should adjust between directive, supportive, participative, and achievement-oriented styles. That's what we can control, depending on the needs of their team and the demands of the task. And the common thread is that effective leaders remove barriers. This is big, what we saw in the analogy of the elephant and the rider, provide clarity, and create motivation. That's engaging the emotions so that people can succeed. One more time, leaders remove barriers, provide clarity, and create motivation, engage the emotion so that people can succeed. So, I'm reading this, but I'm trying to be as authentic as possible. As you continue your leadership journey, remember that leading well is not about being right. It's about reading the moment, responding with flexibility, and making decisions that build both performance and trust. So go get them this week. I appreciate you all. As always, congratulations on making it through the arduous task of your class on Tuesday night with Professor Kershner. Please reach out to me if you have any questions. I will stay after class to answer any individual issues. And have a great night. I'll see you guys on Thursday, guys and gals. It's
Good night,
inspirational
Professor.
when you reflect on some of these leaders that one might consider to be heroes and think about their lives